Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Sunday, January the 23rd, and boy, do we have a slate today in football and in basketball, and of course, our golf sweat for all of our high lineups right now that we just need to finish strong with some good golfers. So it is an exciting day here at Coach Talk. Glad you could join me here for this podcast. I'm going to go over all the games, man. We have 11 NBA games today, and we're covering all of it here on Coach Talk. We've got, for our members especially, or if you're going to become a member, just go to dfscoachtalk.com, can sign up for as little as a 3-day pass for $10, and we would love to have you in our family. But we are covering all kinds of stuff today. Our football team group with Andrew, Crash in Omaha, and Jet, they all have everything covered. We've got 2 games, single games. We got it all in NFL for lineups. And we're doing the same thing in the NBA today. We're covering all 11 games. We're doing a 2-game early slate for Draftkings and Fanduel. We're also supplying lineups for the 9-game main slate on Fanduel and Draftkings. I should have said Draftkings and Fanduel on the first one. But Yahoo's doing a little bit different. And we're also covering their main slate, which ends up being a 7-game this evening. So if you play on any DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, we've got you covered for all of them. So no sense in delaying. We've got a super busy day. Crazy game last night in the NFL. Some really good NBA finishes for us. Had some guys really step up. So we've got everything going today. Can't wait to dive into all the sports. I'll be flipping channels like a maniac here, but it's going to be fun. All right, let's dive in. We don't have any time to waste. I know everybody's time is precious with all of this stuff going on today. So 11-game slate. We're going to get right into it with the early game. There's 2 of them that make up that early slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. The first one is at 1 o'clock Eastern. It's the LA Clippers and New York Knicks. Knicks -4, paltry 206 total. So definitely not a fun game for DFS purposes. But when you have a little 2-gamer, you got to make it work. So right now, designations: Clippers, George out, Leonard out, Preston out. Clippers are 23 and 24, by the way. Knicks almost the same at 22 and 24. The question mark there that's important is Kemba Walker is questionable, and that is going to affect, obviously, the point guard rotation and the backcourt rotation overall for the Knicks. Cam Reddish is probable, so we're going to have our first Cam Reddish in Madison Square Garden. That should be fun. He gets to run with his Duke running mate, R.J. Barrett. So interesting to see how much run Reddish will get. I think Reddish was a great pickup for them. I'm excited to see how he does. Nerlens Noel is also questionable, and that is something, again, with that 3-man Robinson, Gibson, and Noel rotation, it's important to know if it's a 3-man rather than 2-man. Guys that are out are Arcidiacono and Rose. All right, as we look at this game here, we've got 15th pace for the Clippers, 27th for the Knicks. So nothing very exciting there at all. Defensively, Clippers are 6th and the Knicks are 13th now. So some decent D. Again, not a game that we're going to dive all over. Certainly the second early game, Boston Wizards, looks a little bit better. So we'll see. A couple of things here. Amir Coffey's been getting some decent run at 5-3. Marcus Morris is down to 6-3 because he hasn't been doing fantastic. Nicholas Batum really stepped up for us the last time out. He's a cheap 5-5. And even if you go up to Reggie Jackson at 6-2, so they've remained extremely cheap. Nobody really knows who to play or who to fade with the Clippers on a given night. They're all cheaps from their starting. What's amazing here is even if you go into the bench with Mann, Kennard, Bledsoe, even Boston or Hartenstein, that's 9 guys. The highest priced guy is Marcus Morris at 6'3", all the way down to a 4.1 Terrence Mann. So if you want some value on this 2-game slate, grabbing the right clipper is probably a good move. I think Batum, Morris, Jackson would be my first 3, but I've got a feeling Coffee may step up a little today. So possibility of going there. All right, Knicks, again, if Walker's out, it's more Alec Burks or Iman Quickly. If Walker's in, 6-1 maybe, but not the best price. But I think that he'd have to be considered. Fournier's boomer bust at 5-4, not the first place I go to, but he's definitely worth a GPP shot. RJ Barrett's been solid, but he is up to 7-6, so he's a legit mid-range price guy, but he has been tough. And I'm just interested to see how he and Reddish are going to work off of each other. Reddish is only 4-7, so he's worth a chance, but we don't know if he's going to play 10 minutes or 30 minutes. I mean, we really don't. And I've looked everywhere for coach speak, beat writer stuff. He's definitely going to play, but they have not indicated what that rotation is going to really look like. Julius Randle, if you want to go all the way up to 9.5, he has shown signs of life lately, but he has struggled and been booed a little bit even in Madison Square from time to time. Big surprise there with the tough New York fans. But a lot of uncertainty in that game. Not my favorite, but I think having some, a little bit of, what am I trying to say here? I can't think of the word. I guess it's just my brain is too jumbled up and excited with all these sports coming up. But exposure, that's all I'm trying to think of. A little exposure in this game for the Knicks, I think is smart. All right, game 2, Boston Celtics, Washington Wizards. Boston -1.5, 215.5 total, 108.5 implied for Boston, 107 implied for Washington. So there you go. Between 101 from the Clippers, 105 from the Knicks, 107 from Washington, 108.5 for Boston. So nothing dives out in this early slate to say, okay, that's the place to go. So it's an interesting. I'm going to be going a little light on this 2-game slate with all the other good opportunities today. Boston's 23-24, Washington 23-23. Marcus Smart probable and Naismith probable. Bol is out. No changes for the Wizards. They're good to go. So really both teams at full strength here, which makes it really a little bit even tougher for us in DFS. As far as statistically, we've got Boston 25th in pace, Washington 23rd. So maybe even a little worse than the first game. Boston's 5th in defense, and Washington is 21st. So, yeah, like I say, tough call here. You got your 2 pay-up options that are the 2 best, I think, on this short slate, and that's Jaylen Brown at 9 or Jason Tatum at 10-1. It's a tough call. Who is KCP going to guard? I think he'll probably guard Tatum. So, or Brown, he could switch back and forth. So there's no slam dunk there, but I think that more than likely he's going to start out on Tatum. Kyle Kuzma's back after the 1 game out for the neck issue. So a little danger there if that neck flares up. He's 8K. Now you've got all this turmoil of who's going to play center minutes. They're trying to play Gafford, Harrell, and Thomas Bryant. So it is not DFS conducive for me. I eventually hope Thomas Bryant just takes that position over and we can start plugging him in. He's only 3-2. So if you think he's going to get a big run here, it's definitely risky. But if he can just get to 25 minutes at some point here, 25 to 30, he's going to be a slam dunk play for sure. Bradley Beal at 8-8. Not particularly the spot I want to go with the tough defense from Brown and Tatum. Dinwiddie's a little too high for me now at 6.5, although he can produce, just a little bit of a limited ceiling there. So really, more looking at a cheaper play like Pope or a gamble play like Bryant. Um, Beal's a little much. So more likely a Boston side here. And it's not going to be an easy group to fill out for that early slate, but hopefully that gives you at least a little feel of the numbers and what we can expect. All right, let's get into the real deal here. These 9-game full slates here, main slates, start at 6 p.m. Eastern, our regular Sunday time, and it's on Draftkings and Fanduel, and there's some great contests for this 9-gamer. So let's dive in. By the way, in that early slate, the Knicks are on the first night of a back-to-back. The other 3 are on an island game. In this first game, we have the Chicago Bulls on the first game of a back-to-back. Everybody else on the slate, we don't even have to mention it. They're all on an island game. So the Bulls' first night of a back-to-back, they're playing at Orlando. Chicago's only a 3-point favorite, which is sort of shocking. 109 implied, and for Chicago, 106 for Orlando. 215 is the total. So Chicago -3. We know they're missing some guys, but that is a small spread for Orlando team that is 8-39. Chicago is 28-16. Here's a ton of guys out here. For Chicago, Ball, Caruso, Green, Jones, Levine, and Williams. For Orlando, questionable tag on Ross. I'm counting him out as of right now. And then MCW out, Fultz, Hampton, Isaac, Moore, all out. So we definitely have, some things to look through here real quickly. Chicago 16th in pace, Orlando 13th, so they're in the middle of the pack. Defensively, both teams below average. 19 for Chicago. They've been getting murdered lately. And 25 for Orlando. So not good defensively. And, like I say, they've been getting murdered. That's why Vegas has them only a 3-point favorite. It's still a hard one to swallow, but they're digging deep for the guys after Kobe White, DeMar DeRozan, and Vucevic. There's a combination of Dosunmu, Cook, Thomas, Brown Jr., McKinney. Those are the guys. I mean, somebody's going to have to fill in those spots. But if Vegas is right and it stays in single digits, I think the guys in play without question are Kobe White at 6'3", DeMar DeRozan, who's one of my favorite plays on the slate, at 8'9", and then Nikola Vucevic, who I have not gone too much, but he's 9'1", and those 3 guys in a close game are going to get massive usage. Without Levine and Caruso and company, I mean, these guys are going to get and Ball. They're going to get a lot of usage. So I like the Chicago side a lot. I'm going to be on them. On the Orlando side, if it does stay close, my good old buddy Cole Anthony, I had been off of him the last week or so, but he's down to 6'4". He was way up there, 8'1" here not that long ago. I think he deserves a mention. I'm interested in him. We're seeing a big jump from Jalen Suggs. He's starting to really produce, get more shots up, and I think he's definitely in play at 5'5". After that, you've got your Franz Wagner opportunity at 5'3", but he's slowed down a little bit. Wendell Carter Jr. at 6'7" can definitely get there. And Mo Bamba, hard to trust. He had that insane half where he had 28 real points, 7 threes, but he's just been hit or miss, and he's at 5'4". Their bench, if Ross plays or not, will affect the bench a bit, but they're not bad off the bench with Okeke and Lopez, Mo Wagner, etc. So for me, I do like this game. I'll have probably definitely looking at DeRozan and White, and those 2 could make my lineup. And then on the Orlando side, I think you really have to take a long look at Anthony and Suggs. So even though it's only a 215 total, this could have a big impact on our slate here at Coach Talk. All right, the other 6 o'clock game, Portland Trailblazers. There's actually 3 of them. Portland Trailblazers, Toronto Raptors. Toronto favored by 8. 213 total, 102.5 Portland, 110.5 Toronto. As far as where they stand right now, Portland's 19-26, Toronto 22-21. So interesting. Portland sort of mailing it in. I also saw something from Lillard where he was stating if they're playing for a lottery position, he doesn't want to come back. He'll sit the rest of the season. So we'll see how that plays out. As far as who's in and out, Nazir Little questionable, Dennis Smith probable. Nazir Little's been changed to probable. So Little and Smith more than likely going to play. The guys that are out, Lillard, Nance, Powell, and Zeller. For Toronto, Birch, Dragic, and Johnson are out. So a couple things to look at here. We've got poor pace for Portland at 20th, Toronto at 28th. So not a fast-paced game. That's why we've got that 213 number. Defensively, though, Portland's 28th. They've been terrible. Toronto 15th, right in the middle of the pack. Playable guys here all over the place. Simons at 7.3, McCollum at 7.5. He's really getting back into the swing of things. Both playable. Nazir Little can throw a nice game on the board, but I'm going to be avoiding him with Anunoby defense. Covington, Nurkic, same thing. Not thrilled. I prefer the guards here from the Portland side. Toronto, you've got all their guns back, and they use them big minutes. Fred VanVleet leads the league in minutes. He's at 8.8. He can be considered. It's just my concern with the usage splitting up because Trent's back, Anunoby's back, Barnes, Siakam, and then they're using Boucher and Achua decently off the bench. That's really the 7 guys they've been playing. So there is some value here. Trent's only 4.8. Achua is only 4.5. Boucher is up to 6.1, so bordering on difficult to play. Siakam at 9.2, a little too pricey. I wasn't impressed with him last go around. Scotty Barnes at 6.4, though, definitely gets my interest. Only problem with that is he's probably going to get Robert Covington defense, and he can definitely lock down a rookie guy like Barnes. So more interest towards VanVleet, Trent, and Anunoby, but I think this game, even though it's a lousy 213, I think I'm going to have a guy here or maybe one off from both sides. So it's going to be a bit contrarian, but we have a lot of low totals today. And we just have 2 monstrosity of totals where most people are going to be stacking those 2 games. Now, I'm going to have some people from those games, but I think I'm going to be scattering in. That was my initial builds here, cherry picking a guy from different games here with low totals. Still, the matchup looks great. I mean, granted, it may be 20 points less of a total, and I get that, and it is very important. But you grab the right guy, then and it really can pay off for you. All right, we have another 6:00 game. So I was wrong. There's actually 3 of them. Okay, no, I think I said 3. Lakers and Miami Heat. Miami minus 2.5. Lakers have a 106.5 total, and Heat 109. It's a 215.5 total altogether. Miami, that slight 2.5 point favoritism, and LeBron in Miami. That's always a fun outing for everybody. That should be a highly watched game and a very interesting game. As far as designations, LeBron's going to play. I won't even need to say this probable nonsense. The big news, though, is Anthony Davis. He is questionable. It sounded like he was trending to play. If he does play, I'm not going to go there, obviously, with his high price, and I'm sure he's going to be on a minutes restriction. But it does change things as far as the rest of the squad usage and everything else, including LeBron. So we need that news. It's very important. Dumbuyu and Nunn remain out. For Miami, PJ Tucker, questionable. The guys out are Hero, Lowry, Morris, Okpala, and Oladipo. So the starting backcourt for Miami still remains on the shelf. Statistically, Lakers 6th pace. Miami has slipped down to 30th. They're now the slowest pace team in the league. Makes sense. They just slow it down, ISO ball, and then just play defense like crazy. That's the Miami way. And then as far as defense that we were just mentioning, Miami is, where is Miami on here? 7th. The Lakers are 16th. So good D on that side. Lakers in the middle of the road. Can look at a lot of guys here. First of all, LeBron is 11-2, big price up. Davis, if he plays 9-8, not a consideration for me, but would probably take enough away from LeBron that he wouldn't be my pay up option at 11-2. And we know how good of defense that Miami plays. After that, just nobody else jumps up. Russ still way overpriced for what he's produced. Always a threat, but not going to go there. You've got decent prices on the rest of them, but just nobody jumps out that is worth playing on this big of a slate. It's a little different on the Miami side. You have a good price, Gabe Vincent at 5-1, Duncan Robinson at 4K for the minutes he's going to get, Caleb Martin at 4-5. I mean, those three guys, and Max Strus at 4-7. So you've got four cheap guys, any with the potential to get good minutes and step up. So good value plays all around there. The two pay up guys both deserve mention. Jimmy Butler at 8-7, of course, is always a great play. He's going to get up for a game like this. I think he's priced right and definitely interested in Jimmy. Bam Adebayo at 7-8. I like him. He's playing well. He seems back, full deal. But he is getting backup minutes for Dwayne Dedmon and maybe a little bit from Yurtseven. And I can't believe they just shut him right out of pretty much most of the rotation with how great he was playing. But, Bam's the thing with him is if Davis plays, even though he's just back a bit, I think that his defense is tough. I think they do play him or Dwight Howard, or, they'll go bigger against Bam at times. So really my focus if I'm going to pay up is Butler and then on the cheap value plays from there. All right, now we move on from the 6 o'clock game. We've actually got a 7 o'clock game. It's the Atlanta Hawks and the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte's favored by 3.5. It's a 235. Yes, you heard it. 235 total. Two teams that cannot spell the word the defense. It is Charlotte minus 3.5, 235, 115.75. Atlanta, 119.25 for Charlotte. So we have two busting that 115 number, and that's usually a giant highlight, circle that game type of scenario. And it makes perfect sense here. Let's take a look, a couple things on the who's in and out. Atlanta comes in, by the way, 20-25, 5 games below 500. Charlotte 26-20, playing good ball. Kevin Huerter's questionable, and Danilo Gallinari questionable. That's important because they take a lot of minutes in that rotation for Atlanta. That would elevate some other guys because Bogdanovich is out. So we need that Huerter news because that really helps guys like DeAndre Hunter and even solidifies Trae Young with even more minutes at the guard spot. For Charlotte, we have one guy out. That's Jalen McDaniels. So let's take a look here. Defense, 29th and 24th. So you have two of the bottom 6 defensive teams in the entire league. Just got to dive all over that. As far as pace, Atlanta's 22nd. So that's not great, but Charlotte's 4th. So big pace up game for Atlanta. All kinds of possibilities here. Trae Young at 10-3 makes sense in a game like this, although he might get Terry Rozier. Scary Terry can defend. So I don't know if I want to go to 10-3, but you have to have exposure here. This game is just too big. DeAndre Hunter is a great play at 5-1. If Huerter's in or out, I like Hunter. If Huerter's out, Hunter's going to be 100% lock and load play for me. John Collins is fairly priced at 6'9", but he gets Miles Bridges' defense, and he is defending this year. The Capella 7-3, I know he came back the last game. He'll get more minutes, sort of eliminates like an Okongwu or anything like that. If Gallinari sits, it definitely lightens the bench there. You may get some minutes from 3-7 DeLon Wright or 3-2 Lou Williams, but I think focusing on Young, Hunter, and Collins possibly. And then if Herter's in without restrictions at 5-2, he's playable as well. On the Charlotte side, I think you have some great chances here as well. LaMelo Ball at 8-2 is definitely in my player pool. Terry Rozier's drifted up to 7-7, so a little worried there. Gordon Hayward at 6-2 has a tendency to be a little bit inconsistent, and not sure at 8-3 if Miles Bridges is the best pay-up option. But like I say, I want some exposure to this game. Oubre off the bench at 5-1 seems like a great bargain. If he can get enough minutes, I think he's a terrific play. So that's about it there. Get a cherry pick, maybe spend up for a couple of guys. Certainly a key game on the slate. All right, we have a 7 o'clock game now, the second one. That is Philadelphia 76ers, San Antonio Spurs. Philly -2, 220.5 total, 111.25 implied for Philly, 109.25 implied for the San Antonio Spurs. Philly's 26-19. The Spurs are 17-29. A lot of guys out for Philly. Curry, Green, Milton, Simmons, and Thibault. For San Antonio, just Zach Collins remains out. He's been out all year. Interesting game here. Tough one to figure. Philly's 29th in pace, but San Antonio's 8th. So nice pace-up game for Philly. And then on the defensive side, they're middle of the pack, 14th and 18th respectively. Do you spend up for Embiid at 11K or DeJounte Murray at 10-2? I mean, both guys have been absolutely phenomenal. I don't know, though. The game script here, the grit and grind a bit, by the Sixers in the ISO ball is a little bit tough. Embiid's been more dominant than any player, even more than the Joker this last week. He's just been out of his mind. And but 11K is a lot to play, a lot to pay. I know you'll get Jakob Poeltl, and then they'll throw some Eubanks at him, and maybe even a Hernan Gomez sighting just to beat him up a little bit. But I've got to consider Embiid at 11, but he's not going to be first option for me at this point. Other options for Sixers, their backcourt is just devastated. So Tyrese Maxey at 6'2" has to be a huge consideration. He may play 40 minutes plus. Isaiah Joe, if you want to roll the dice, he's a min 3K and should get good minutes. So he could be the guy that makes you, allows you to pay up for a second stud. Furkan Korkmaz too. Risky, but he's only 4K. If he gets hot from 3, he can pay off in a heartbeat. And then, Tobias Harris, he's such an all-around good player. At 7-2, he's in my crosshairs here today just because, he'll get his assist ratio goes up with some of these other guards off the floor. And, he's got that good all-around game that can really contribute. So definitely interested in some Philadelphia guys as well. The bench, not worth it for me on this big of a slate. DeJounte Murray at 10-2. I mean, I say this every day, but he's a great play. He could get a triple-double, but I'm probably not going to roster him. I don't know why. It always comes down to that, it seems like. But he's so expensive, I'm just always afraid, that the Spurs are going to do something weird, or Pop's going to, not play him full run, or, it's only a 2-point spread, though. So, I mean, more power to you if you want to go there. Just probably not going to go all the way up to Murray today, but I do think he's a fine play. Derek White getting back into the conversation in the last couple of games at 6'2". And then after that, Poeltl at 6'6", generally a decent play, but not head to head with Embiid. I think Embiid's too good of a defender, and it makes a situation where Pirtle could get in foul trouble. So sort of, White mid-range, Murray if you want to really get after it, and then some of the value on the Philly side, I think, are the smart ways to go. All right, now we move on to a 7:30 game. It's the Memphis Grizzlies and Dallas Mavericks. Dallas is favored by 4. It's a 218 total. It should be a really good game. Memphis 107, Dallas 111 implied. As far as in and out for Memphis, we've got a questionable tag on Steven Adams. So that is very important to this game. Sorry, coffee drink. Thank you. Much better. So Steven Adams and Brandon Clark both are questionable. So if that's the case, man, that's going to really make them thin inside, and it's going to force our hands probably to play Jaren Jackson, and that may be a good way to go. We just need to see if those two guys are both going to be out, because it does switch things up a little bit. Out is Kenny Anderson, and we've got Kyle Anderson. Kenny Anderson, that's a quarterback for the Bengals like 30 years ago. Wow. I guess I watched too much Bengals yesterday, but I don't know. Only the older group would know Kenny Anderson, for God's sakes. Also, I think he was a point guard for the Nets. Was that Kenny Anderson went to Georgia Tech? Anyway, I completely off kilter here. I believe he was. All right, Kyle Anderson is out. Bain out, and Brooks out, and Tyus Jones. So definitely shorthanded. The only guy out for Dallas is Sterling Brown. So Lucas says he's fine. His neck's okay, blah, blah, blah. So stats-wise, Memphis 7th in pace. Dallas 24th. So pace up for the Mavs. Defensively, though, this is the conundrum we're in. 8th for Memphis, Dallas is 4th. But in the last 2 months, so good sample size, they are number 1 and number 2 defensively in the league. So that definitely makes me not want to pay up for the big guys, but they could go off. I mean, Ja at 9.6 and Luka at 10.7. You could see a duel here, of epic proportions back and forth. But I don't know, man. The pace overall, the defense, it's going to be tough. I think this game is going to feel like a playoff game. Very excited for it because these two teams are battling for the division. And, Dallas beat them the other day in Memphis. So this is going to be a stoked up game, which doesn't always mean the offenses go off. Usually it means the defenses tighten up. So I don't know if I'm going to go Morant or Doncic. It's very, luring, but I don't think I'm going to do it. I prefer some of the value. Conchar at 4.4, Zaire Williams at 3.7. I think maybe GPP-ish, but possibly last man in cash as a value play to make it work. And then we just need to know what the news is. If Adams is out, Jackson is a huge play. If both Adams and Clark are out, Jackson 100% lock, as long as the damn guy doesn't get in foul trouble. And then, if either Adams or Clark are in or out, then we can consider them as well. After that, don't want to go much deeper. Melton at 4.8 off the bench has been decent, but not enough on a slate like this with Conchar basically playing over top of him. On the Dallas side, of course, Luka 10.7, Brunson 6.4 now, so it's getting a little more realistic. He was way up in the mid 7s. Considering him, he's been playing well, and I don't think they have a good matchup for him in the backcourt. So Brunson back in play for me. After that, though, you can pay up for Porzingis. He's 7.4, and not a bad price. I mean, especially if the Grizzlies front court is shorthanded. So keeping an eye on Porzingis at a fair mid-range price of 7.4, and want that news on the Grizz. Another guy, Xavier Tillman Sr., at 3.1. Maybe dial him up if Adams and Clark are out, because he'll definitely be in that rotation. So interesting game. I definitely want to have some guys here, but I'm not going to overdo it. I respect the way those two defenses have just been so good. All right, we've got 4 games left, 3 games left, 2 8 o'clock and an 8:30. So there's no late West Coast games today that are playing super late. Golden State is on the West Coast, as we know, but that game is at 8:30. They're playing it earlier. Very interesting slate here tonight, and it's going to be compact, not spread out as far, according to this main slate, early game times. Couple things. If you're watching right now on YouTube, quick thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, give us a little comment, anything, 2 words, whatever. That combination really helps us move up the algorithm on YouTube. While you're at it, hit the little alarm in the upper corner. That little bell will alert you every time one of our podcast posts. We've got, you can check out right now if you're playing the final round of the PGA. Our PGA podcast is up for the week. If you're playing NFL, obviously everybody's playing NFL today. Awesome podcast up for that. And then we put our NBA podcast up 7 days a week in front of the paywall. So we'd love if you'd support us, even on audio podcasts. If you're listening anywhere podcasts can be heard, quick 5 stars, make a comment. At the end of the month, which is coming up pretty fast, we will draw for a full 1-week membership at Coach Talk. Check us out. We'd love to have you. We're hot. Today's going to be a huge day for us. Even if you try us out for 3 days for $10 or any of our memberships that we have on there, we would love to have you join the best family in the industry of DFS, DFSCoachTalk.com. You can sign up for everything right there. All right, the first 8 o'clock game, Detroit Pistons, Denver Nuggets. We've got our biggest threat for blowout here of any game on the slate. Denver's favored by 11.5. It's a 217.5 total. 103 implied for Detroit. 114.5 for the Denver Nuggets. Detroit comes in 11-34. Denver at 23-21. Killian Hayes questionable. Livers probable. And then the guys that are out: Garza, Grant, Jackson, and Olynyk has now entered protocol after just coming back 1 game. For Denver, questionable on Jeff Green, who had a real nice game the other day. And then the other Jay Green on the team, Jermichael Green, also questionable. So we have 2 guys with the name Jay Green, both questionable for Denver. See if that doesn't mess you up. Kanchar's out and Murray is out for the Denver Nuggets. All right, the question here is it a Joker day? He is a big fat 12-2, but he's the Joker, and it's against an undersized Isaiah Stewart and company. But there's the big, conundrum again. We'll use that as the word of the day. Do you play the Joker and expect him to get enough minutes if the game blows out? It is a risk at 12-2. He could break the slate with one of his famous 85-90 burgers. So that's the $1 million question. I haven't made that decision yet. I'm still on the fence. I'm going to ride that out a little bit, catch some of this other news and see how that filters out, because I do want to have a lot of salary for this next game after this. As far as the numbers go in this game, Detroit's 11th in pace, Denver 26th. We know they play slow, but neither team anything to write home about defensively. 23rd at 20. So it does make, for some interest. Cade Cunningham at 7.6, his price is back up there again, but he's playing good ball. Diallo's somewhat, and Bay a little too risky. They've sort of flattened out a little bit after playing great. If Hayes sits, Corey Joseph jumps into play at 4.9, but really not anything I want to fly to on that side of the ball. For Denver, again, you go to the Joker, you're good to go. But there are some guys priced decently here. Aaron Gordon at 6.4, I think, is a terrific play, especially if Green sits, because any residual rebounds and those kinds of stats that are grabbed by Green and some of the other bigs, I think those fall to Gordon. I mean, Joker's always going to get his, but Gordon can get those secondary. And he's been playing well. He hit that game-winning 3 the other day from the corner, playing with some confidence. I think he's a nice play. Barton's always tempting because he's cheap. He's $6K now. Monte Morris, I don't trust at 4.8 now that you're getting, some Highland at 3.7, some Compazzo at 3.9. Forbes is the new guy now at 3.1. So really, for me, it's buy up to the Joker or look at Gordon as a nice mid-range plug-in, or Barton is playable, and Cunningham on the other side. So maybe some exposure there, but not a lot. All right, here's the game of the day as far as statistically, total, all the fun numbers. We've got Minnesota -3. They're favored over Brooklyn. It's a 236.5 total. So we got a nice big one here. 116.75 for Brooklyn, 119.75 for Minnesota. So you're going to have a ton of people gravitating to this game, and it's understandable that they are. Brooklyn's 29-16. The Timberwolves are 500. They're one game under, 22-23. Claxton, questionable. We know he's dead to us here at Coach Talk. We won't get into that, though. But he's questionable. Durant, Harris, and Millsap are out. For Minnesota, 2 questionable tags, 1 important. Patrick Beverley, questionable. McLaughlin, questionable. So do you open up the vault and spend all the money on this game? Certainly, James Harden, phenomenal play at 11.7. But is Patrick Beverley going to play or not? Because we know he can harass Harden a little bit, give him a little bit of trouble. Need to know if Beverly's in before I make the final decision on Harden. Kyrie Irving can play because the game's in Minnesota, but he's up to 9.4. But I really think this is a good spot for Irving. I think they don't have anybody to defend him. Especially if Beverly's out, then they're really scrambling defensively. I think Irving is a good play, and you save 2.3K if you go from Harden to Irving, but both awesome plays. Secondary guys, Patty Mills, Kessler Edwards, LaMarcus Aldridge, especially if Claxton doesn't play. Claxton's out. That brings Day'Ron Sharpe into the rotation at 4.4. But LaMarcus at 5.4, I think, is much safer. So some great possibilities on the Nets side. Minnesota has their guns, their regular lineup. If Beverly plays, it'll be Beverly, Russell, Edwards, Vanderbilt, and Towns. And those guys, Russell, Edwards, Vanderbilt, and Towns can score the ball, can get the fantasy points, can get those DFS numbers for you. Even Vanderbilt, he's only 5.6, but Edwards is all the way down to 7.1. He hasn't been as dominant, but at 7.1, that's a dude that can break the slate. Cat at 9.3, much more fair price on him in a big up-tempo game. Definitely very interested him in center in this game. He's been over 10 for quite some time. So a lot of interest in Karl Anthony Towns, one of my favorites on the slate. D'Angelo Russell, fair at 8K. So again, lots of possibilities here. You don't get a whole lot of cheap ones though, so you have to pick your spots. If the game started in 5 minutes, I'd probably have Kyrie and Cat, but a lot of different possibilities here. Wouldn't go into the benches. I don't think it's necessary. A great tempo game, questionable defense. Go for it. All right, last game, 8:30. Weird that it's only 8:30 game. Golden State's favored by 4.5 against the Utah Jazz. And we know Golden State's been bizarre lately with their games. It's a 221 total, 108.25 for the Jazz and 112.75 for the Warriors. So this is a really interesting game, a bit of a statement game from these two teams. Utah's 30-16, Golden State's 33-13. They've had some difficulties of late. Probable for Utah, Bogdanovich, so that's important. Questionable for Gobert. That's very interesting. I would be surprised if Gobert sits here, to be honest with you, but he is listed as questionable. Also questionable Forrest and Whiteside. So if they're missing Gobert and Whiteside, it's a whole different ball game. So we need that news. It's very important. And also Donovan Mitchell still out with concussion protocol scenario. So that's a killer that they don't have Mitchell. But still, this should be a really competitive game because Golden State doesn't have Draymond Green. So no Iguodala either, which hurts, and Weissman. So certainly, maybe not a precursor to the matchup they could be in the playoffs, especially without Mitchell and then without Green. But still, an important game, one I expect some guys to really step up in. Utah's 14th in pace, Golden State 12th, so middle of the pace. But we have two top 10 defenses, Utah 10th, Golden State 1st. So, gives you a little bit of, wariness here of where you want to go and how many players you want. Conley at 6'2", reasonable. Ingles, if he's in that starting lineup at 4'5", makes some sense. Bogdanovich shot the ball well at 6'3". Obviously, we need to know the situation with Gobert. If he's in, does he have, no restrictions? Is Hassan available to back him up at 5'3"? That's just imperative to make some final decisions on the Utah side. If happens to be, for example, that Gobert and Whiteside are out, then all of a sudden Rudy Gay, Royce O'Neal, those guys all become in play. So let's wait for that news and see what we can have, where we can find some value on that Jazz side. For the Warriors, big pay up, 10-9 for the Curry. We know he can break a slate in a heartbeat. We also know he's had some struggles shooting the ball lately. So, if you look at the last week or two, so 10-9 is a big ask here, but certainly always can, go that route and just hope he has one of his red hot 3 games. Klay Thompson, still not right yet. Of course, he's been out forever, but he's playing decent enough at 5'6" to get my attention. I'd consider him. Andrew Wiggins fared 6'3", but with Curry and Thompson in there, his usage has gone way down. Otto Porter at 5'5", also a sneaky guy that you can get in that can get there. But with O'Neal defense, not my first spot to go. Looney, Poole, Peyton, Damian Lee, Kuminga, all those guys are decent, and they're all like 4 or 5K, but I'm just not going to go that deep on a slate like this against a good Utah team that does slow the ball down. So, all right, that is it, my friends. What a busy, crazy slate. Can't wait to get in there and just dive in. Sweating the golf's going to be a blast. All this NFL action, and then, of course, all these different slates in the NBA. So we'd love to have you join us. Appreciate everybody listening in. Go to dfscoachtalk.com to join us, and I will be back again tomorrow. It's a small slate, only 4 games tomorrow, so you want to check that out for sure. I'll have my podcast here that we normally do at Coach Talk. Also, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a little collaboration with a friend of ours in the industry, Gundacker. I don't know if you know Gundacker from his Run Sports site, and he does some stuff on Awesemo. But I'm going to guest appearance on his show live tomorrow afternoon, Monday afternoon, somewhere in the 2:30 range. So that'll be a live stream. We'll tweet that out, and we'll also put that information on our Discord. And then Gundacker is going to join us later this week to do one of our podcasts. So helping each other out. We're all trying to grow our channels and get winners out there to the people. So and looking forward to that tomorrow. So thank you very much for spending this time. I know it's precious time with so much going on. Really appreciate all of you joining in. And we'll definitely be back again tomorrow when we look to crush it in DFS.